Hello gardeners, what if you could build a thriving garden without digging, buying expensive soil, or wasting a single scrap? Whether you're working with a tiny balcony or a sprawling homestead, the methods we're exploring today will transform how you think about creating garden beds. These aren't trendy shortcuts, they're time-tested approaches that work with nature instead of against it, building soil that comes alive beneath your feet while saving you money, time, and backache. The no-dig method is exactly what it sounds like, creating productive garden beds without ever turning a spade. This approach works because it mimics what happens naturally in forests and wild spaces, where nobody tills the soil yet plants thrive magnificently. When you dig, you're actually disrupting an entire underground ecosystem of fungi, bacteria, and beneficial organisms that do the heavy work of creating fertile soil. You're also bringing dormant weed seeds to the surface, where they'll germinate, enthusiastically, creating more work for yourself down the line. Starting a no-dig bed is beautifully simple. Begin by laying down cardboard directly over grass or weeds, yes, right on top of them. This cardboard acts as a weed-suppressing blanket that eventually breaks down, but not before it's smothered everything underneath. Overlap the edges by at least 6 inches to prevent persistent weeds from sneaking through the gaps. Next, pile on compost, aged manure, or any organic matter you can source. Aim for at least 4 to 6 inches of this rich material. Top everything with a generous layer of mulch. Straw, wood chips, or shredded leaves work beautifully. Water the entire bed thoroughly so everything settles and begins the decomposition process. Within weeks you can plant directly into this bed, poking through the cardboard if needed for larger transplants. The magic of no-dig gardens reveals itself over time. The cardboard and bottom layers become a feast for earthworms, which tunnel through creating natural aeration channels. Fungal networks establish themselves undisturbed, forming partnerships with plant roots that help them access nutrients and water more efficiently. Your soil structure improves dramatically because those countless soil organisms are building it for you, creating a crumbly, nutrient-rich texture that roots love to explore. As an added bonus, you'll spend far less time weeding because weed seeds aren't constantly being churned to the surface, and any that do appear are easily plucked from the loose, fluffy soil. Long before modern gardening books and YouTube channels existed, people were growing food successfully using methods that worked in harmony with natural cycles. The forest floor method draws inspiration from these ancient practices and from observing how nature builds soil in undisturbed woodlands. Walk through any mature forest and you'll see layers of decomposing leaves, fallen branches, and organic matter creating incredibly rich, dark soil underneath. No human intervention required. To recreate this in your garden, start collecting organic materials as they become available throughout the seasons. Fall leaves are garden gold. Rake them into your designated bed area rather than bagging them for the curb. Add grass clippings from unsprayed lawns, creating thin layers so they don't mat down and become slimy. Kitchen scraps, coffee grounds, and crushed eggshells all contribute valuable nutrients. Layer these materials directly on the ground, letting them pile up naturally. You're essentially building a compost pile that doubles as a growing bed. Indigenous communities around the world developed sophisticated composting and soil building techniques that sustained agriculture for generations without depleting the land. Many used variations of layering green materials rich in nitrogen with brown materials high in carbon, understanding intuitively what we now explain through soil science. They observed natural decomposition cycles and worked with them, creating closed-loop systems where nothing was wasted. This approach honors that wisdom while adapting it to contemporary gardens. The decomposition happens slowly and steadily, with soil organisms breaking down materials and incorporating them into the earth below. After a few months, you'll have a rich living bed ready for planting, built entirely from materials that would have otherwise been thrown away. Perhaps you've inherited a garden with tired, depleted beds, or your own beds have seen better days after years of use. Rather than starting from scratch, you can rebuild and revitalize these spaces using minimal resources and maximum creativity. Old bed frames made from bamboo, wood, or even stones can be reinforced and reused instead of replaced. Bamboo poles are particularly useful. They're strong, naturally rot-resistant, and can be lashed together with natural twine or rope to create sturdy corners and supports. Start by assessing what you have. Are the frame materials still structurally sound? If wood is rotting at ground level, you might reinforce it with bamboo stakes driven into the soil alongside the weak spots. Weave additional bamboo horizontally through vertical supports to add strength. For beds without frames, create simple borders using reclaimed bricks, stones, or even thick branches arranged to contain the soil. The goal isn't perfection, it's creating a defined space that holds your growing medium and looks intentional. Next, address the soil within these beds. Even exhausted soil can be brought back to life without removing and replacing it. Lay cardboard over any compacted areas, then pile on whatever organic matter you can gather. Aged manure, compost, dried grass clippings, shredded leaves or kitchen scraps. Work with the circular economy principle here. Everything that grew from soil can return to soil. That fallen branch from your yard, chop it up and add it to the base layer where it will slowly decompose and feed soil life. Those dried weeds you pulled last month? They're nitrogen-rich green material. Even paper egg cartons and untreated cardboard packaging can be torn up and added. Water everything thoroughly and let time work its magic. Within a growing season, you'll have transformed depleted soil into a thriving ecosystem ready to support healthy plants. Raised garden beds offer excellent drainage, easier access for planting and harvesting, and the opportunity to create ideal soil conditions from the start. But, buying lumber or pre-made raised bed kits can be pretty expensive. The good news, you're surrounded by free or cheap materials that work just as well. Wooden pallets are everywhere. Businesses often give them away or sell them cheaply. Now, here's a tip. Look for pallets stamped HT for heat treated rather than MB for methyl bromide treated to ensure they're safe for food growing. You can stand pallets on edge and secure the corners or disassemble them and use the planks to build custom-sized beds. Old barrels, cut in half, make excellent raised planters for deeper-rooted crops. Concrete blocks can be stacked to create sturdy walls. Arrange them so the holes face upward, and you've got built-in spaces for planting herbs or flowers. Bricks salvaged from demolished buildings or old patios cost nothing, and honestly, they last forever. Even thick branches and logs can be stacked and secured to create rustic raised beds that blend beautifully into garden landscapes. For beds that retain moisture exceptionally well, try incorporating hugelkultur principles. This technique involves placing logs and branches at the bottom of your raised bed before adding soil. As this wood slowly decomposes over years, it acts like a sponge holding moisture and releasing nutrients. Start with larger logs at the base, fill gaps with smaller branches and twigs, then layer on grass clippings or other green material. Top with compost and soil. The wood layer means you need less soil to fill the bed, saving money while creating a self-fertilizing, water-retaining growing space. As the wood breaks down, it also creates air pockets and feeds beneficial fungi, improving soil structure season after season. Once your beds are established, keeping them thriving requires ongoing attention to building soil life and maintaining moisture. Compost tea, made by steeping finished compost in water for a day or two, delivers beneficial microorganisms directly to plant roots when used as a soil drench. Worm castings are even more potent, packed with nutrients and forms plants can immediately use. If you're not already vermicomposting, consider starting a simple worm bin to transform kitchen scraps into black gold for your garden. Mulch is your greatest ally in water retention and weed suppression. A thick layer of organic mulch, at least 3 to 4 inches, shades the soil surface, keeping it cooler in summer and reducing evaporation dramatically. As mulch breaks down, it feeds soil organisms and adds organic matter, so you're simultaneously conserving water and building soil. Refresh mulch layers seasonally as materials decompose. Companion planting also helps conserve moisture by creating living mulch, dense plantings of low-growing crops that shade the soil while producing food. Every scrap that comes from your garden or kitchen can return to feed your beds. Vegetable peelings, coffee grounds, crushed eggshells, and wilted flowers all contribute nutrients when composted or used as mulch. This closes the loop, reducing waste while constantly enriching your soil. You're not just growing food, you're participating in natural cycles of growth, death, and renewal that have sustained life on Earth for millions of years. The garden beds you create using these methods will improve year after year, becoming richer and more productive as soil life establishes itself. You'll spend less time fighting problems and more time harvesting abundance, all while knowing you've built something sustainable, beautiful, and alive. These techniques work whether you're growing tomatoes on an apartment balcony or managing acres of food production. The principles remain the same. If you found this guide valuable, subscribe to the Living Soil Lab for more practical, nature-based growing wisdom. Share this with fellow gardeners who are ready to work with nature instead of against it. Together, we're building not just gardens, but a movement toward regenerative living soil that sustains us all.